Does anybody remember the Marie Kondo versus books controversy? According to Marie Kondo, when it comes to books, you should only keep those that spark joy, meaning that you should declutter your collection by getting rid of any books that don't bring you happiness when you see them, even if that means significantly reducing your book collection to like about 30 books. However, this approach or idea, I should say, it was very heavily criticized by avid readers who said that books have emotional values and that value is more important or go far beyond joy. And then she had to apologize and blame the Japanese humid climate for only like suggesting to keep 30 books or so. And then she said, oh, well, keep as many books as you want as long as it gives you joy. Let's talk about the currently trending, currently viral underconsumption trend and books. And yes, guys, we will do that in front of my gigantic book collection because this is currently where the lights are the best. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. Before we start a whole discussion about books and consumption and sustainability, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to one of my subscribers who actually inspired today's video essay, because when I was preparing for my 1K Q&A and I called for questions, there was this one subscriber who asked me about my thoughts about books and consumption and sustainability, and I knew that there was no chance for answering that question in a Q&A because I always wanted to create a video around this topic. So there you go. Enjoy! I have a passion for reading and books, and I create content around reading and books and sometimes shopping. And I'd like to think that I am a self-aware person in general, and I like to think that I'm a self-aware person when it comes to my consumption. And I decided to film this video because I myself am trying to navigate my thoughts and my feelings around this trend. So this video is basically just a chat room where I share my opinions, my feelings, and my thoughts, and you guys are welcome to do the same in the comment section down below. Treat it as a living room where friends are just having a conversation. Today's video we will discuss the definition of underconsumption core, because I personally feel, based on the research that I did for today's video, that there is a lot of misinterpretation going on out there on the internet when it comes to this trend. Then I also want to discuss the intent behind this trend. I want to talk about what I like about this trend and certain things that I don't like, because I do have a couple of problems with this trend. Then I want to touch on books specifically and underconsumption and sustainability when it comes to books and when it comes to the bookish community or the readers community. And then last but not least, I also want to tell you how I navigate when it comes to my consumption, specifically when it comes to books and my consumption. And I want to give you a couple of tips, specifically 13 tips that I've collected over the past couple of months that helps me navigate my consumption when it comes to books. All right, what is underconsumption core? Well, I guess that we can all agree that the internet, or maybe I should say people on the internet, are fed up with overconsumption and brainless spending. And as a direct response to this influencer-driven culture, now underconsumption or underconsumption core is trending. The first time when I came across this trend, that was in the beauty space, because I am very passionate about skincare, just a little bit, makeup, not that much. I'm not really good at makeup, but I am very passionate about skincare and books and food. Kinda, those are the type of comments that I consume. And in the beauty community, overconsumption and just spending more that you can afford, it became a huge problem. And based on what I observed, and based on the research that I did for today's video, it was something that definitely started in the beauty space. And I personally was, or maybe I should say that I am, very excited about this trend. It is finally a trend that I like because I am very passionate about seeing normal everyday people living their normal everyday life on the internet. And when it comes to this underconsumption core, it basically means that we take care of what we have, that we are grateful for what we have. We use up what we own, we fix if we break something, we repurpose what we can, and in general, we don't make unnecessary and frivolous purchases. Underconsumption, basically, and it's a little bit tough to explain the meaning of underconsumption because there are so many mixed interpretations up on the internet that I will talk about later in the video. But basically, when it comes to the meaning of underconsumption, I like to explain it as a movement, as a very refreshing movement that is here to bring us back to reality and to create a balance, and maybe even to combat overconsumption that is or can be really gross in certain examples. And it is something that is generated by social media and specifically TikTok. It can be a fantastic place. In general, social media and TikTok can be a fantastic place because it can connect people, but also people have to realize that TikTok is a selling machine. It's nothing else but a selling machine, a capitalist machine where influencers are constantly trying to sell something to you. And yes, I purposefully use the word influencers and not content creators, because when it comes to TikTok, just influencers upon influencers selling you things in 60 seconds videos, and then sometimes there is an ad break, and then you can get back to your influencers just selling you things over and over again and showing off their expenditure and showing off their possessions. And thanks to this, we just don't know what's normal anymore. We have completely lost the plot. And now when we walk away from social media, we walk away from social media feeling worse about ourselves, that we are not pretty enough, that we are not skinny enough, or we're broke. Or when it comes to specifically books, it makes you feel that I don't buy enough, I don't own enough books, I don't read enough, I am not smart enough, I am not intellectual enough. And it doesn't really serve anybody. I mean, that's technically not true because it serves everybody, every person and every company that is trying to sell something to you on this app. And when it comes to the underconsumption core or trend, it is actually very validating and borderline empowering to see a trend that is trying to show us again what normal life looks like. Underconsumption is often misinterpreted with minimalism, but minimalism basically tries to get you to get rid of things in order to own less, because you don't need that many materialistic things in your life. But when it comes to underconsumption, it is trying to get you to be a little bit more normal, a little bit more sustainable about your purchases in general. For example, when you have 65 books on your physical TBR, underconsumption core encourages you to read these books before you go and buy new ones, which should be the normal situation anyways. But it doesn't push you to get rid of these 65 books and create waste so that you can go out and buy new books to fill up your cart. It encourages you to take a step back and look at everything, what you already have, what you already own, and be grateful for it and be content about it, which will ultimately help you mentally. And also, I don't have to say, but I'm going to say it, it also helps your wallet, and obviously it also helps the environment. So basically, it is normal living, normal consumption made into a trend, technically. And while there are so many things that I absolutely love about this trend, I have a couple of problems with it. And I think that, well, one of the problems, or the biggest problem I have with it, I should say, is that it can so easily induce shame in people. It can so easily make you feel that you are not enough, that you don't do enough. And let me use myself as an example in this video. For example, I have a book collection that is big. I have about 500 books, and I know that there are some people out there who are like 500 books, that's like nothing. I have 1,000 or 2,000 books, you know. And then there are some other people watching this video who think, oh my god, like 500 books, it's a lot. And when I first came across these underconsumption core videos, I remember feeling like a little bit shit about myself. I was like, oh my god, I am not enough. I am definitely not doing enough when it comes to consumption and sustainability. And one thing that this trend does not address is what this collection, for example, means to me, or in general, what book collections mean to readers. And I'm talking about the emotional value, of course. Like, there are so many books in my book collection that are so old, that are from the 50s and the 60s, and they technically belong to my family, but nobody reads in my family, so I have those books. Some really, really old Hungarian poetry collections, some Hungarian classics that are just so dear to me. I have a very big cookbook collection, for example, but I have so many books there that belong to my grandma, and I even have her handwritten notes in those books. Obviously, these books are so dear to me. And this collection, it did not come to be overnight. This is the result of years and years and years of collecting these books. And one thing that I want to point out now, but again, this is something that I will discuss later on in the video, I did not acquire these books by putting myself in debt. You know, I am again very self-aware of my consumption, and I am very self-aware of my finance, and I like to think that when it comes to how I spend my money, I am very mindful in general when it comes to that. But I am somebody who has this dream, and I talked about this in many of my other videos, where I want to have my own personal home library one day. That is literally my dream when I get there, to finally own a house. I will definitely have a beautiful garden and a beautiful library. So that is the reason why I am building this collection. Out of all the materialistic things that we can own, in my personal opinion, probably books are the least worse. And as long as you read these books, because I read every single book in my book collection, and you're not using these books or your bookshelves to show off and to try to come across as somebody who's like, oh, so smart and so intellectual. Honestly, I don't see a problem with having a book collection like that. And now I specifically want to talk about books and underconsumption and sustainability, and just like I said in the beginning of the video, a couple of my tips on how to navigate your consumption when it comes to books. And I want to start this section by addressing the hate towards book haul videos, and also towards creators slash influencers and readers in general, even if you are not a content creator. There are a lot of people out there who are hating on people who have book collections, because basically they just call us, well, I am somebody who has a book collection, they just call us book dragons. And look, maybe this is true, maybe I just simply have an issue with owning things. And I think that what we need to ask here is, why do you own books? So maybe I should say, why do you buy books? Because if you buy your books to read them because this is one of your biggest hobby and it gives you joy, I personally genuinely see absolutely no problem with that. But when you buy books just to own books, because we all know that you don't necessarily need to be a reader to own books. So when you buy books just to own books, to show off your beautiful shelves, or to match a certain aesthetics, or to try to come across as somebody who is very smart and very intellectual and very refined, I think that that's where the true issue lies. But when you have a book collection, regardless of the size of your book collection, because you are a valid reader whether you own one book or 1,000 books. It doesn't really matter. But if it means something to you, like for example, I explained what my book collection means to me, I personally like genuinely don't think that it is the end of the world. And when it comes to book haul videos, I can again only use myself as an example in today's video, but I feel that when you watch book haul videos for entertainment, because I am somebody who regularly watches book haul videos because it is entertaining to me, and also I use them as book recommendation videos. And every time when I film my book recommendation videos, I always tell you guys, take this video as a book recommendation video. I never encourage you to buy. I encourage you to read, and I always try to highlight a couple of websites where you can buy used books, thrifted books, or in general, even if you want to buy new books, cheaper books. I never want to really influence you to empty out your wallet. Always look at these videos as book recommendation videos. And as long as we are talking about book haul videos, I just wanted to point out this thing as well, because again, this is just something that I know from personal experience, is that sometimes you live in certain areas in the world, in certain countries or in certain states where you just cannot get your hand on a certain book or a certain special edition, or maybe you don't have the money to buy that beautiful special edition, and it gives you joy to watch other people unbox it and show it to you on camera, because you cannot even walk into a bookstore to check out that book in person. I know that I've been there many years ago, when the books that I wanted and I craved, I either couldn't afford or I just didn't have those books around me. And seeing other people unboxing these books in their videos, that was actually very entertaining and very valuable to me. And I do think that we need to consider these things before we go on shaming people, judging people, hating on people for going out and buying books or having a book collection. It doesn't matter if you're an influencer, content creator, consumer, or viewer. And now it is time to share my tips and what I do to navigate my consumption, or maybe I should say to moderate my consumption when it comes to books and when it comes to reading. And obviously these tips have been around. I did not create any of these tips, and obviously this is the part of the video where it's a take it or leave it kind of situation, because I do not know your finance, I do not know your lifestyle. Just take whatever it is that you want to take from this part of the video, something that you find valuable and some things that you can apply in your own life. I don't really want to talk about some basics that are obvious things that you can do to regulate your consumption. I don't really want to talk about, you know, libraries, to go to the library or swap books in little free libraries or use audiobooks or use ebooks. That is not necessarily what I want to focus on in this section of the video. And my number one tip basically is to take a step back. Take a step back, look at what you have, look at what you own, and be very content with it, be very grateful with it. And before you go and make another purchase, just try to consider the financial, environmental, and mental health impacts that particular purchase could have in your life. In general, have some self-awareness and know how you contribute to a problem. Obviously, if that purchase that you want to make, if that's something that costs you your future, and if that's something that could cost you your retirement and your savings, or possibly put you in debt, obviously you need to sit down and reconsider whether you want to make that purchase or not. And before you go and buy anything bookish, or in general anything in your life, ask yourself the question, why do I want to buy this thing? Do I want to be the part of a trend? Do I want to be the part of a hype? Do I have FOMO? Am I bored did I just have a bad day? Now let's go through the other 13 tips that I collected for you in today's video in no specific order. I think you guys know me by now, and you know that when it comes to filming my videos, it's like usually it's chaos. Tip number 1, only buy special editions with those beautiful sprayed edges and beautiful golden foiling. I know that I'm a sucker for that. Only buy these editions for books that you have read and you know that you love, and you want to have those books as your favorites in your collections. Because nowadays publishers are coming out with these beautiful physical copies because we don't really want to buy physical books anymore, especially with audiobooks and electronic books booming, because the price is so much better than for physical books. So they do it for a reason. Be smart about it. Do not buy a special edition until you read that book. And oh my god, when it comes to series, fantasy, romantasy, sci-fi, you name it, finish that series. Finish that series before you go out and buy that special edition. Tip number 2, and I know that for so many people out there this is gonna sound like a nonsense tip, but buy the books that you are genuinely interested in. Now let me explain. I am somebody, and again I just keep using myself as an example in today's video, but I am somebody who reads a lot of new releases, and when it comes to new releases I do a lot of pre-ordering, especially if it's kind of like an auto-buy or one of my favorite authors. And honestly, specifically in 2024, I ran into a lot of very poorly written, poorly edited books from some of my favorite authors, from some of my favorite series, fantasy series, and that was such a disappointment for me. And now I am a lot better, or I should say I am becoming a lot better with doing my research before I pre-order that book, because when it comes to new releases, it is very easy. It is very easy to make this mistake. Tip number 3. If you are somebody who has a big book collection, reread your books. That is something that I will do this year, because again, I have like about 500 books and I am a human. Okay, I have a very tiny brain. I do not remember everything. When it comes to certain books, I completely forgot the plot. I completely forgot about the characters, and it is time to reread these books. And who knows, maybe it can happen, because you know, I am also a mood reader. Maybe it can happen that I didn't really like a particular book in one time in my life, but maybe now that I am older, and maybe now that I am in a little bit of a different mood, maybe I will actually end up adoring that book. Tip number 4, read your TBR, whether that's a physical TBR or audiobook or ebook TBR, it doesn't really matter. Try to pick up a book from that TBR when you are in the mood to read something. And again, it's kind of hard when you're a mood reader. I really want to be a very organized and structured reader, but unfortunately it's just something that I cannot do. So when I'm now in the mood to read something, for example, read fantasy, read romantasy, or read sci-fi, and I see something interesting online, I automatically look at my cart, and that is one of the reasons why I like to organize my TBR separately from my bookshelf, because I just look at my cart and I see all the different fantasy books that I have, romantasy books, fiction, literary fiction, non-fiction books that I have that I should read before I go out and buy another book. And there you go. There is a little bit of extra tip for you that I didn't officially put on my list. Maybe it's a good idea to organize your TBR separately. You don't have to buy a card. I bought a card because I like to drag this card around, but you don't have to do that. Just organize them separately, maybe on your bookshelf, maybe on a separate shelf, or maybe put it on a nightstand, or maybe on the floor. It doesn't really matter, but maybe it's a good idea to organize them separately, so when you are in the mood, when you're craving to read something, you can just look at those books and pick up something from that pile instead of going to the bookstore or the library. Tip number 5, do not be afraid to unhaul. Unhaul whatever books you want to unhaul, so they are basically not collecting dust, but somebody else can find them very helpful. I regularly unhaul my TBR and my DNFs, and I usually take them to little free libraries, so I just either swap the books or I just give it to somebody else to read it, so again it doesn't collect dust. But also there are so many bookstores, independent bookstores out there that are actually willing to buy your used book as long as it's in a good condition, and I think that you can get around 20-25% of the original price if that is something that you want, and then you can get bookstore credit or whatever you can buy a new book that you are more interested in. All I'm trying to say is do not be afraid to unhaul your books. Tip number 6, buy used and thrifted books. If you are somebody who doesn't have bookstores around you that sell used books, I am very lucky because in Boston we have so many bookstores, it's insane, and we have so many specifically second-hand book selling bookstores, and you can just walk into and browse, and it's fantastic. It was not always like that in my life, okay? So I am very grateful for it. I am appreciating it. But I have a couple of websites as well. There are specifically second-hand websites that I have been using over the past couple of years. I really like to use Goodwill books. I really like to use thrift books, half-priced books. I also sometimes use Amazon Used. And also, if you are somebody who wants to buy your books new and cheaper, I recommend that you check out Blackwell's, which is a UK-based indie bookstore, and they ship to the US for free. And I think that they ship worldwide, not just the US, for free, and you can save a lot of money, at least a couple of bucks and the taxes when it comes to ordering your books from Blackwell's. I've done it multiple times in my life. Tip number 7, go to the library to test the books that you want to buy, the books that you want to invest in. If you are somebody like me who wants to own her books, because again, I want to build a home library one day, but you're not sure about making that financial and time commitment that comes with reading, just go to the library, check out that, I don't know, 5 to 10 or whatever, how many books you are interested in, sample a couple of chapters and only buy the ones that you connected with. Tip number 8, slow down reading and enjoy the plot and enjoy the characters. Enjoy connecting with the characters. I am a character-driven reader, and what I observed in the past couple of years, specifically 2023, it was a tough reading year for me. I didn't really like the books and the characters that I read because I read so many books, and I realized that I never really invest my time into connecting with the characters. I need to slow down my reading in general. I am a very fast reader, and this is unfortunately a habit that I developed while I was doing my university studies and PhD, because I just had to consume so many books in one semester that I was just reading so fast, and unfortunately this bad habit stayed with me. So I need to remind myself now, and this is a change that I want to make in 2025, that I need to slow down. I don't want to read 140 books anymore. I want to read 60 books this year, but I want to connect with the characters and I want to enjoy the plot. I want to read longer books and I want to sink my teeth into that book. Tip number 9, accessories. Now, I cannot really speak about personal experience when it comes to this problem because I don't really like a lot of knickknacks in general when it comes to my decorations and everything that I own on my bookshelf. These are souvenirs, shells, for example, that I got from my travels, or a couple of ceramic things that I painted, some DIY, and some things that my mom made for me. So when it comes to owning accessories, this is all I have. But I know that there are a lot of people out there who own a lot of other accessories, I don't know, mugs and blankets and armchairs and lamps and book sleeves and covers and the stickers and annotation tools. I cannot speak for that because I don't own those things. I don't consume those things. But maybe before you buy those accessories, maybe it's a good idea just to think about it. Like, do you really need it? Do you really want it? Tips number 10, consider your subscription to different book boxes. I know that there are so many different versions out there. For example, I have Book of the Month, but that's just a book box or book subscription that only has a book. But I know that there are so many other subscription boxes out there, like specifically the fantasy and the romantasy ones, that are not just about the beautiful special edition that you get, but also again a lot of different accessories and tchotchkes that basically, if they are not important to you, if they have absolutely no emotional value to you, then basically they will be just there on your bookshelf collecting dust. So maybe just objectively look at your subscriptions and decide which ones are the ones that you want to keep, and whether you truly really need all those accessories and tote bags, because with all honesty, like, how many tote bags and candles can you own? I'm not judging. I am absolutely not judging, because I have my things. Okay, this is just, I'm just trying to encourage you to, again, just maybe have a little bit of self-awareness and ask yourself a couple of questions. That is also something that I'm doing when it comes to my consumption. Tip number 11, and maybe this is something that I will need to use this year. How does your bookshelves look like? Did you buy your bookshelves? Did you thrifted your bookshelves? Did you buy used bookshelves? Do you need bookshelves? Can you store your books on the floor? Maybe that is something that I will need to do this year, because I cannot fit my books on the bookshelf anymore, and I also cannot find now bookshelves that will fit into the space that I need to use up, and maybe, just maybe, I will have to come up with an other storage options that does not involve any furniture. Tip number 12, and this is something that, oh my god, I made this mistake so many times, guys. Do not buy into a series before you actually know that you like that series or not. I read a lot of fantasy. I know that many of you watching my videos read a lot of fantasy books. We all know of fantasy, sci-fi, romantasy, historical fiction, historical romance, I should say. They are all based on series and different characters. And as much as I love it, as much as I enjoy it, how many times has it happened that you loved the first book and then you ended up hating the entire series? Honestly, with all honesty, just answer that question. How many times have that happened to you? To me, a lot. And I'm not going to do that anymore. I am not going to buy into the entire series. I'm just gonna wait and see how the first book goes. I know that it's sometimes tough because there are not so many editions out there, and when publishers just like keep printing different editions, different size and different paper quality, I know that this is something that's annoying, but I am just not going to financially invest into series anymore. That's all. I mean, if I like it, of course I will buy the books, but not ahead of time. I'm not going to buy the entire series ahead of time. Tip number 13, shopping, window shopping. Enjoy the act of shopping and just wandering around in the bookstore without buying anything. This is the best way, honestly, to get some book recommendations. Talk to other shoppers in the bookstore or talk to the booksellers. What I've observed, because this is something that I do quite regularly, what I observed is that people, even like other shoppers and booksellers, they love talking about books, and they love telling you what books they love, what plot and what characters they love. You guys let me know if you have any other tips for me, what I can incorporate into my everyday life. That is something that I would really appreciate. And also let me know if you found any of these tips actually useful. Whatever it is that you decide to do, however you want to manage, or maybe you don't want to manage your consumption, it is totally your decision. Just do it not not to be part of a trend. I know that I am not doing it to be part of a trend. I don't want to mold myself into something I am not, to be part of a trend. I am doing it, and maybe there are so many people out there doing it because this is something that brings us back to normality. I remember when I specifically started thinking about underconsumption core and taking some measures in my life. It was an Instagram reel, I believe, when somebody talked about like saving money and participating in underconsumption core by making their own coffee and their own breakfast in the morning. And that video actually really scared me. And that video just made me realize, like, oh my God, yes, we have collectively lost the plot. Because if we think that making your own coffee and making your own food and making your own breakfast and having breakfast at home and your coffee at home in the morning, if you think that that is underconsumption, then maybe something is wrong, and we collectively need to come back to the normal. We need to understand what is normal. For whatever reason, when I watched that reel, immediately my grandmother and my grandma's generation came to my mind. When I was little, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. I absolutely adored her, and you know, her generation was insanely different from ours, just like obviously my mother's generation and my generation, like the millennial generation, is very different from Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Anyways, but there are certain generational differences, and I remember how my grandma, for example, consumed things, and the mentality of that generation was so different. They said, if something is not broken, don't fix it. If you can repurpose something, repurpose it, unless you need to go out and make a purchase. Like, you need to make that purchase. It's not about your wants, it's about your needs. Just like, don't do it. I know that I focus a lot on my current present life offline. I am somebody who's trying to practice, you know, being in the now, living in the now. I am trying to be very grateful. When I'm not trying to be, I am very grateful for what I have, and I am trying to be very content with what I have. And I need to make sure, I need to get there where my consumption completely aligns with my core values and with who I am. And I know that I am personally not there, not where I want to be, but I also know that I am progressing. I know that I am challenging myself. I am constantly asking questions, and I think I'm doing the best that I can as a human, and that's one thing that's very important to remember. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Just like I said, treat the comment section down below as kind of like my living room. You are welcome to express yourself. Hit share, like, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. I will see you in the comment section. I will see you in one of these videos, and also in my upcoming video that is coming very soon. Bye!